It seems like finally, after like 6 months, was it 6 months? Many weird adventures, many weird shuffling in the House of Speakers, the Republicans losing their bit by bit their majority in the House because of some Republicans getting impatient. They apparently only have one person majority in the House now, the Republicans. And after all that time, after all the tensions, after all the things, after all the Trumpian scheming, it seems like we have a date on when a vote will be happening for Ukraine aid bill. Finally, the Republican Party has sort of decided that it has to be tied to the southern border problem and Israel. And then they sort of tried to vote Israel independently, but that was shut down. Then they kept stalling the Ukrainian bill, the joint bill that had the southern border and Israel in it. And now they decided to disjoint it again after Marjorie Taylor Greene sort of threatened to get rid of Mike Johnson if he agrees to any aid for Ukraine. And now it seems like a separate bill for Ukraine is going to be voted on. And I believe it will be this Saturday. This Saturday, we might be seeing a vote on a Ukraine bill. US House to vote on Ukraine and Israel aid despite hardline objections. So there is a chance. I'm not going to say it's guaranteed because, well, I'm definitely not saying that it's guaranteed because I've learned throughout all of this time, I have learned to be a bit skeptical and I have learned not to get too excited until a thing actually happens, okay? Don't count our chickens until they hatch. But let's read. Let's see what this is all about. Let's see if we can get our hopes up. Let's see if there is anything to get our hopes up about. Let's not get too excited. Stuff might still happen. We might get to the day of the vote and I don't know, Mike Johnson will get ill and say we have to postpone. I don't know. I hope that will not happen. I sure hope the vote will go actually as planned and that the aid will be approved, but you never know. Unfortunately, at this point, all I have to say is that you never know. Let's get into it. The US House of Representatives will have its long-awaited vote on aid for Ukraine, Israel, and Indo-Pacific as soon as Saturday. There are actually speculations as to why this is happening, and the speculation is that the escalation of the Israel-Palestine situation, the attack of Iran on Israel, has put so much pressure on the House that this thing could not be postponed any further. But that's neither here nor there. So the US House of Representatives will have its long-awaited vote on aid for Ukraine, Israel, and Indo-Pacific as soon as Saturday, Republican Speaker Mike Johnson said on Wednesday, paving the way for its possible passage despite fierce objections from the right wing of his conference. The House Appropriations Committee unveiled legislation providing more than $95 billion in security assistance, including $60.84 billion to address the conflict in Ukraine, of which 23.2 billion would be used to replenish US weapon stocks and facilities. So basically the US would sort of, I guess, give weapons to Ukraine and replenish its stock with the equivalent of $23.2 billion. That is how that would work. The Israel bill total 26.38 billion, some of which will cover the cost of US military operations responding to recent attacks, and 9.1 billion of the total is designated for humanitarian needs, something Democrats had demanded, although it bans any funding for the UN Palestinian Refugee Agency, UNRWA. The security aid effort gained urgency following Iran's weekend attacks on Israel in retaliation for a suspected Israeli airstrike on Iran's embassy compound on Damascus on April 1st. See, this is basically what I said, that this is caused by the pressure from the Iran attack on Israel. Which, by the way, Israel is already sort of announcing that it will do its own retaliation to the Iran attack, which might cause things to escalate further. The situation is still ongoing. We will see how it will develop. But that is again a totally different discussion for a totally different topic. The Indo-Pacific measures totals 8.12 billion. Indo-Pacific, which would be Taiwan. Johnson said he would give House members 72 hours until midday Saturday to review the bill and offer amendments before a vote on final passage. He also said he would release a separate border security bill, meeting a demand from conservatives. Democratic President Joe Biden called on Congress to pass the bill quickly. I will sign this into law immediately to send a message to the world. We stand with our friends and we won't let Iran or Russia succeed, Biden said in a statement. The three bills are similar to a $95 billion foreign assistance package the Senate passed in February with strong 70% bipartisan support, but Johnson declined to move ahead until this week amid objections from hard-right lawmakers, some of whom threatened to try to oust him as Speaker. For example, Marjorie Taylor Greene threatened to oust him as Speaker should he agree to any aid to Ukraine. The Ukraine bill includes a provision that economic assistance to Kyiv, not military, should be repaid, which was a conservative demand. However, the Biden administration could waive that requirement. Democratic support. Democratic support for Johnson's plan is essential given the slim Republican majority in the House and opposition from far-right Republicans. Right. The plan got an important boost from Representative Rosa DeLauro, the top House Appropriations Democrat. We finally have a path forward to provide support for our allies and desperately needed humanitarian aid, she said. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries said Democrats would discuss the bills and decide. We want to have that conversation as a caucus, as a family, as a team, he told reporters. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer also said that although the House measures seemed similar to the Senate bill and he wanted aid to pass quickly, he would review the legislation before deciding. At least two House members had threatened to try to oust Johnson if he went ahead, and a handful came out against the bills on Wednesday as soon as they were filed. Aid to Ukraine is strongly opposed by many of the most conservative lawmakers, especially those allied with former President Donald Trump, who has been a Ukraine aid skeptic and hopes to win back the White House in November. So basically, the most rabid MAGA hats are against aid for Ukraine. That is what the article is saying. And also, some of them have threatened to oust Mike Johnson as Speaker should he put any aid forward. I doubt the Democrats will sort of reject the bill. Unless there's something really nefarious hidden in the bill that the Democrats just cannot agree to, which we'll see. Hardline Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene on Wednesday reiterated her threat to try to remove Johnson. Joe Biden just announced he supports the House bill Johnson is forcing forward, Greene said on X. Johnson is not our speaker, he is theirs. The question is how much longer will our conference tolerate this? Johnson said he would not let the threat influence him, saying it was critically important to support Ukraine. I could make a selfish decision, but I'm doing here what I believe to be the right thing, he told reporters. The right thing. You should have done the right thing months ago. Like this, what a mess. Well, better late than never. The hope is that it is not too late. That's the big hope. That it is not too late. There are also objections on the left amid concern about sending money to Israel and as it strikes back against the October 7 attack by Hamas militants. Opponents say there should be tighter control on US weapons and taxpayer dollars, given the devastating toll on Israel's campaign in Gaza on civilians. This worries me a bit. This part actually worries me a bit. Johnson said the House Rules Committee also would post a fourth national security measure, including the Repo Act House TikTok bill and sanctions. The Repo Act would set the stage to hand seized Russian assets over to Ukraine, and the House in March passed a bill that would give the short video app TikTok's Chinese owner ByteDance about 6 months to divest US assets on or face a ban. Johnson also promised a separate border security bill. Immigration is a top concern for conservatives ahead of November 5 elections that will decide control of the White House and Congress. Some Republicans have insisted they would not back foreign aid without more funding for security at the frontier with Mexico. So there we have it. We're going to have a vote this Saturday, hopefully uninterrupted. Hopefully it will go well. Hopefully the aid for Ukraine will move forward, signed by Joe Biden. And we will see how it will affect the battlefield itself. We will see how it will affect the situation on the ground. We will see how long from the approval of aid it will actually take to implement the aid and for the effects to be felt on the ground. Actually, it seems like we can actually look a little bit at the text of the bill itself. So it seems like we will be able to actually take a look at the bill itself and see just what are we looking at. So let's take a look at the bill. Let's take a look at what it offers. Apparently, there is Oh, let's see. This is actually pretty interesting. This is actually pretty interesting. Ukraine aid bill includes a requirement for the US president to provide the country with ATACMS missiles. The bill provides for the following, among other things: allocation of 61 billion, including 23 billion to replenish US arsenals. Assistance is planned to be provided on a loan basis, which is an interesting thing, the loan basis thing, because a loan can be waived. So technically speaking, it could be a loan, but in practice, Ukraine could be demanded to pay none of it. So it could be very well a pretty good thing. Confiscation of Russian assets to cover these expenses, which is another interesting point, because as far as I know, the US does not have that many US frozen assets. Most of these frozen assets reside in Europe, as far as I am aware, as far as I am, as far as my familiarity with the subject goes. The bill also requires the State Department and the Pentagon to submit a US strategy for supporting Ukraine. And this is it. Making emergency supplement appropriations to respond to the situation in Ukraine and for related expenses for the fiscal year ending September 30, 2024, and for other purposes. In the House of Representatives, a bill making emergency supplemental appropriations to respond, being enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled, that the following sums are appropriated out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated for the fiscal year ending blah 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 blah. So there we go. We sort of got a little bit of a view of what this bill entails. Some of it we already knew. Some of it we already knew that the 23 billion would be to replenish the US stock. This we've already sort of known. It has been known to us. But it's been nice. It's been nice to sort of take a look at this sort of, thing. We'll see. This is potentially very good news, but I'm Polish. I'm Polish, so I remain skeptical. I remain skeptical until the vote happens, until the vote passes, until the aid is accepted. I remain skeptical. It's in my blood. It's my destiny to be like this. It is the Polish way. No other way is possible. I would not be a Polish person if this would not be how I operate. But this is why you like me so much, because I offer some good old Polish bitterness to this discussion. I offer some good old-fashioned Polish bitterness, which is needed. I offer you some authentic Eastern European experience, which, you just get the happy-go-lucky, yay, everything's good feels, while I give you the gritty Polish reality. Okay?